We continue with you here on News Radio WRVA. There's a lot of great things I've been able to do on this radio show. One of the greatest is introducing you to Dr. Jake Frinderfach. He is a executive coach. We call him Dr. Jake. We do it Mindset Monday. We give you tools to attack life. And the difference between a counselor that you go see, they help repair things that have happened in your life that affect you negatively that you carry around and can't get rid of on your own. An executive coach, on the other hand, gives you the tools to take these things on as they come at you. He gives you the tools to survive, to thrive, to get better. And we're so lucky to have Dr. Jake join us on Monday. He goes around with C suites. He goes around giving speeches, and he's well sought after. And the fact that he comes on as a favorite of me it means the world to me. So, Dr. Jake, we hear this all the time. Whether you're watching Fox News and uh, the doctors go on talking about rewiring your brain, or we talk about it with TikTok, or we talk about it with people that have addictions. We talk about all these things. I hear everybody talk about rewiring their brain. Now,
Mm,
you explained to us that we have billions, and I called them these little microchips in our brain, the little neurons. And then you said
yes.
there's the neuron pathways, I believe is what you called it, between the two of them. And you told me something a couple weeks ago, and I want to follow up on this. We can rewire our brain with these neurons, these pathways, and the little fatty cells that protect. Explain to me what it means and how our brains wired, how we can rewire to change our behavior, our attitude, and our life.
Yes. Rich, good morning. Great to talk about this. Obviously, this is one of my favorite topics. And so it's always a joy to come on and interact with you about these things. Basically, the idea behind your question is that as we develop sort of habitual thoughts, we create neural pathways. And these are just like, if for those of you, that when it's snowing out, right? You walk from your house to your neighbor's house in the snow, you leave a little footprint, and if you only go down that pathway once and then more snow comes on, you're not going to see that. But the more and more you walk down that pathway, the more compacted it gets, the more entrenched it gets, and then as more and more snow comes down, you can see that dent in the snow, and then you trample it down again and it becomes a pathway again, right? So this is kind of what happens as we're thinking thoughts within our mind. The more we think a thought, the more entrenched it becomes. And it's a physical entrenchment that goes down a little electrical pathway called a neural pathway. And the more we use that, the more our body sends a protective coating. Just think about a wire in your wall that goes, from the light switch. There's a little rubber coating on the outside of that, and that's an insulator to allow that wire to transfer electricity easily. And so our brains do this. It's the process called myelination, where we build up sort of a thick protective coating around the neural pathways that we use a lot. So if we're talking to ourselves, if we're saying certain things to ourselves, if we've learned a habit, Rich, you often obviously reference sports, learn how to throw a curveball, right? The first, 50 times you're not going to be able to do it. The first 250, right? It's going to be rusty, but the more you do it, the more you refine it. And there's a neural pathway that's developed around that, you're probably for a lot of your life going to be able to repeat that. So that's how those things build up.
So once I have that neural pathway, it's easier and easier and easier. Does that pathway get bigger the more that we do it, or does it just develop a thicker coat to protect it to make it easier for that thought, that pathway, um, to continue to become dominant in your brain?
Yeah, that's a good question. I am not. Yeah, I've been not been in brains to see firsthand,
Here,
but
let
the
me open
idea
mine
is
up.
it
Take a look.
it becomes more entrenched, and whether it's the going down that more and more, or the myelination building up, it becomes more permanent that way. But the good news is that if we find that we have a negative habit, and when I say negative, I mean something that isn't serving us well, something that isn't getting us towards the end goals that we might have for life. For me, I realized a while ago it was eating Whoppers and drinking Coke at Burger King.
Let me give you an easy
And
one. Let me give you an easy one. I'm not a morning person. I've never been a
okay,
morning person in my life. I've never wanted to wake up early in my life, yet I find myself getting up every day at 3:30. I don't know how I'm doing. I'm honestly amazed that I don't hit the snooze bar 28 times. I actually wake up in the morning, and when the alarm goes off at 3:30, usually I'm awake by the time the alarm goes off. And if I'm really tired, I'll hit the snooze bar once, and that's it. I won't just sit there and stay in bed. I've never been able to do that in my whole life. So obviously, I've had the myelination of I hate mornings has disappeared, and now I get up and I want to attack my morning because I want to come and talk to people.
Right on, right on. It's an old dog new trick sort of thing, and those things can happen. They do happen, and a lot of it has to do with the motivation we have to change. Obviously, for you, there was strong motivation in taking this role. That means having to get up early. That means having to be prepared. That means having to be online when you hit that, open that microphone in the morning. And the more you've done that, the easier it's become for you. And this is part of human growth, is that we do have the ability to make changes. And what's happening at a neurological level is you've created a new neural pathway that in its infancy didn't have a lot of myelination along that route. But the more you've done it, the more habitual it's become, the greater that myelination has become, and that's become actually easier for you to do those things that maybe 5 years ago you would have said, never, never, never would I do that. Never could I do that.
So if we understand where the myelination is and it's negative, we can break that by making a conscious effort. How long does it take to make that change, to do that different thing? They always say 6 weeks becomes a habit. I'm beginning to think that 6 weeks to develop new myelination, to get that little piece of rubber around the wires in your head to be thicker and thicker and thicker, so you can have that conduit that makes it a little bit easier. How long does it take you to erase that old worn out path in the snow and establish a new one that's positive?
Yeah, great question. A lot of it has to do with the motivation for a specific outcome that we want to have, right? And one of my mentors was in his early 60s, probably, and he's light skinned, redhead guy, and his wife was always sort of harping on him to put sunblock on, and he just didn't like the way that it felt on his skin, and he didn't like getting it, around his eyes, and he didn't like the smell of it and all this stuff. And so he never really got in that habit, even though cognitively he knew that he was susceptible to melanoma, that he was out in the sun a lot, and that it was probably a good idea to wear sunblock. And so he just went on and never really developed the habit to do it. And then he had a granddaughter. And at some point in time, he had this sort of flash forward to her wedding day, and he was immediately convicted of the fact that he wasn't taking care of his skin. And he knew people that had, developed severe cancer, skin cancer, and their health suffered from it. And the motivation to be at his granddaughter's wedding was so powerful for him that he was able to overcome that bad habit and create this new habit of always putting sunblock on in a very short period of time, because he was extremely motivated to do it. Now, these things are habits where there's not sort of a chemical dependency, Rich, and so I want to be careful to differentiate those, because sometimes if there is chemical dependency, those take different approaches and different amounts of time. But for most of us, a habit could be 3 weeks to 6 weeks in development until it really becomes part of us. And it's the amount of time that we do it, it's the intensity with which we do it, and it's the outcomes that we want to see or want to have. The stronger those outcomes, usually the quicker it is to develop some new habits, especially the ones that we know are good for us.
So if I look myself in the mirror and really find a reason why I want to make this change, I always tell people I want to. Sometimes I'll get pissed off for greatness. I'll get tired of failure. I'll get tired of this, and it'll make me double, triple down on my motivation to change my ways, to do something different, to be successful. If we can dig down deep enough to find something really at the core of our soul, we can make these changes, can't we?
Yeah, and that motivation is very important. But in terms of the neuro physiological component of it, right, we're talking about real neural pathways. And it's easy to go down them if we've gone down them time and time and time again. So creating a new one, we need to go down it enough times. Okay, so we need to have that cue to eat for me, it was the Burger King Whopper, or to eat a healthy salad, let's say. I had to go down that healthy salad route enough times for that to become myelinated and that to become habitual. And then over time, if we're not using that Burger King Whopper pathway, and my apologies to Burger King if anybody at Burger King is listening, but the unhealthy choice versus the healthy choice, then that myelination starts to decrease on that neural pathway, and you take over that new one takes over, and you get a stronger, more insulated neural pathway. And it
So
takes,
the less you use it, that little rubber coating outside starts to shrink because you're not using it every day.
That's right. That's
Wow.
right.
So we can
Yeah.
rewire our brains. It's not too late. We can make these changes. It's up to us to make these choices. Now, again, folks, if you want to find out more, you want to reach out to Dr. Jake, you can. His website is Up Coach. The word up twice, coach.com, if you want to find out more. Dr. Jake, this has been boom, mind blowing, especially when we get to the holidays right now where people have these thoughts. Let's get these positive thoughts. Let's get the good myelination going, the good mental pathways. And for those negative ones, let's just stop using them and watch them wither away, and we'll do something positive with our lives.
All right, Rich, it's been awesome talking with you. Thanks so much. Happy holidays, everybody, as they're coming your way.
Wow. We'll continue. It's News Radio WRVA.